Everyone turned away from the broken alien until one human saw her worth asterisk. The slave market of Xandros Prime buzzed with activity as hundreds of beings from across the galaxy gathered to trade in living cargo. Cages lined the dusty corridors, filled with creatures of every shape and size, the air thick with the smell of fear and desperation. Merchants shouted prices while buyers examined their potential purchases like livestock in the darkest corner of the market. Far from the prime merchandise sat a small platform made of rusted metal. On it crouched a young female alien, her once beautiful wings now torn and twisted. One wing hung uselessly at her side, the delicate membrane shredded beyond repair. Her pale blue skin was marked with old scars, and her silver hair hung in matted strands around her face. Nira had been sitting there for 3 days. Her people, the Celestians, were known for their grace and beauty, but she no longer resembled her noble heritage. The merchant who owned her called out half-heartedly, "Damaged goods. Broken Celestian. Can't fly, barely walks. Someone take her." Cheap, most beings walked past without a second glance. Some pointed and whispered about her deformities. A few laughed cruelly at her fallen state. Nira had learned to keep her eyes down, to make herself as small as possible. She had given up hope of ever leaving this place. The sound of heavy boots on metal drew her attention. A human approached her platform, his weathered face showing the marks of countless journeys among the stars. Captain Joran stood tall despite his worn appearance, his dark eyes scanning the market with quiet intensity. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and his presence drew curious stares. Unlike the others, he stopped directly in front of Nira's platform. She felt his gaze and slowly lifted her head, expecting to see disgust or pity. Instead, she found something she had forgotten existed, genuine concern. "What's your name?" he asked softly, his voice cutting through the market noise. Nira's lips parted in surprise. No one had asked her name in months. "Nira," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The merchant laughed harshly. "She speaks. That's rare these days. Usually just sits there like a broken doll. You interested, human? I'll give you a good price." Joran ignored the merchant, keeping his eyes on Nira. "Are you hurt?" She touched her damaged wing instinctively, wincing at the memory of how it happened. "It doesn't matter," she said, her voice hollow. "It matters to me." Something in his tone made her look up again. His eyes held no judgment, no cruel amusement. Just a warmth she had thought was gone from the universe. "How much?" Joran asked the merchant, finally turning away from Nira. "For that broken thing? 500 credits, and she's yours." Without hesitation, Joran pulled out a credit chip and handed it over. The merchant's eyes widened at the amount displayed. "This is 3 times what I asked for." "She's worth it," Joran said simply. Nira stared in disbelief as the transaction completed. The merchant shrugged and walked away, leaving her alone with this strange human who had just bought her. Freedom.Joren approached the platform and extended his hand. "Come on, Nira. Let's get you out of here." She looked at his offered hand, afraid to believe this was real. Slowly, she reached out and took it. His touch was gentle but firm, and she felt something she hadn't experienced in so long: safety. With careful movements, Joran helped her stand. Her legs shook from sitting so long, and pain shot through her damaged wing. But she didn't fall. He supported her weight easily, his arms steady around her waist. "I have a ship," he said as they walked through the market. "It's not much, but it's clean and warm. You'll be safe there." Nira wanted to ask why he was helping her, why he had spent so much on a broken slave, but the words wouldn't come. She was too overwhelmed by the kindness of this stranger. They reached his ship, a modest cargo vessel that had seen better days, but was well maintained. As they stepped aboard, Nira felt the oppressive weight of the market finally lift from her shoulders. The ship's interior was simple but comfortable, with soft lighting and the gentle hum of life support systems. Joren guided her to a small cabin with a real bed, not the cold metal platform she had grown accustomed to. He brought her water and a warm meal, the first real food she had tasted in weeks. Rest, he told her. We'll talk when you're ready. As the ship lifted off from Xandros Prime, Nira lay in the soft bed and allowed herself to cry. Not tears of pain or despair, but of relief. For the first time in months, she was not alone. This human, this Joren, had seen something in her worth saving. She didn't know what the future held, but as she drifted off to sleep, she felt something she had thought was lost forever. Hope. 3 days had passed since they left the market, and Nira was beginning to feel almost human again. The ship's medical bay was small, but well equipped, and Joren had proven surprisingly skilled at treating her injuries. He worked with gentle hands, cleaning old wounds and applying healing salves to her damaged wing. This might sting a little, he warned as he treated a particularly deep scar along her wing membrane. Nira gritted her teeth, but didn't pull away. She had grown to trust his touch, to find comfort in his presence. You're very skilled for a trader, she observed, watching him work. Joren smiled slightly. I wasn't always a trader. I served in the medical corps during the frontier wars, learned to patch up all kinds of injuries. She studied his face, noting the way his eyes grew distant when he mentioned the war. Is that where you got those scars? He touched the thin line across his jaw unconsciously, among other places. The galaxy isn't always kind to those who try to help. Then why do you still do it? She asked. Why help me? Joren paused in his treatment, meeting her gaze. Because someone has to. Because you deserve better than what happened to you. The simple sincerity in his voice made her heart flutter. No one had ever spoken to her with such genuine care. As he resumed working on her wing, she found herself studying his features more closely. The strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead, the concentrated expression he wore while treating her injuries. There, he said finally, stepping back to admire his work. It's not perfect, but it should heal properly. Now, Nira flexed her wing experimentally, surprised by how much better it felt. It's wonderful. Thank you. Their eyes met and held for a moment, longer than necessary. Nira felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a feeling she had never experienced before. Joren seemed to feel it too, because he cleared his throat and looked away. I should check on the navigation systems, he said, his voice slightly rougher than usual, but as he turned to leave, Nira caught his hand. Wait. He looked back at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Slowly, she stood and moved closer to him. They were almost the same height, and she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Joren, she whispered, her voice barely audible. He cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing the line of her cheek. Nira, I don't want to take advantage of you. You've been through so much. You're not taking advantage, she said, leaning into his touch. You're the first person to show me kindness in so long. The first person to make me feel like I'm worth something. His other hand came up to frame her face, and she closed her eyes, savoring the warmth of his touch. When she opened them again, he was looking at her with such tenderness that it took her breath away. You're worth everything, he said softly. The kiss was gentle at first, hesitant, as if he was afraid she might break. But as Nira responded, pressing closer to him, it deepened. She had never been kissed before, never felt the rush of emotions that came with intimate contact. Her hands found their way to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palms. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Nira rested her forehead against his, marveling at how right it felt to be in his arms. I've never felt anything like this before, she admitted. Neither have I, he replied, his arms tightening around her. They spent the rest of the day together, talking and sharing stories. Nira told him about her home planet, about the floating cities, of the Celestians, and the way the twin moons looked during harvest season. Joran shared tales of his travels, of the wonders he had seen among the stars' dot as evening approached. They sat together in the ship's observation deck, watching the stars stream past. Nira had curled up against Joran's side, his arm around her shoulders. She felt safe and cherished in a way she had never experienced. "Where are we going?" she asked, though she found she didn't really care as long as she was with him. "There's a space station in the Meridian sector. They have excellent medical facilities. I want to see if there's anything more they can do for your wing." Nira looked up at him in surprise. "You would do that for me?" "I would do anything for you," he said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head dot. As they sat together under the stars, Nira felt her heart opening to possibilities she had never dared to dream. This man had saved her from the market, but more than that, he had saved her from despair. Whatever the future held, she knew she wanted to face it by his side. The alarm klaxons shattered the peaceful atmosphere of the ship like a hammer through glass. Nira jolted awake in Joran's arms, her heart racing as red warning lights bathed the cabin in an ominous glow. "What's happening?" she asked, fear creeping into her voice. Joran was already moving, pulling on his clothes with practiced efficiency. "Pirates. 3 ships, coming in fast." He tossed her a flight suit. "Get dressed. We might need to move quickly." The ship shuddered as the first energy blast struck their shields. Nira struggled with the unfamiliar clothing, her damaged wing making it difficult to maneuver. Joran helped her, his touch still gentle despite the urgency of the situation. "Stay close to me," he said, leading her toward the bridge. The main screen showed 3 predatory vessels closing in on their position. They were sleek and dangerous, built for speed and violence. Joran's hands flew over the controls, trying to outmaneuver their attackers. But the cargo ship was no match for the pirates' fighters. "This is Captain Corvin of the Crimson Fang," came a harsh voice over the comm. "Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. We know you have something we want." Nira's blood turned to ice. "They're after me, aren't they?" Joran's jaw tightened. "Not happening." He pushed the engines to their limits, weaving between asteroid fields in a desperate attempt to lose their pursuers. But the pirates were skilled, and their ships were faster. Another blast rocked the vessel, and sparks flew from damaged control panels. "Joran," Nira said urgently, "there's something I need to tell you. Something about what I am." "Can it wait until we're not being shot at?" he replied, wrestling with the controls. "No, it can't." She grabbed his arm. "I'm not just any Celestian. My people have abilities that others covet. That's why I was so valuable in the market, why these pirates want me." Before he could respond, the ship shook violently. The pirates had caught up with them, and their shields were failing. Joran made a split-second decision and steered them toward a nearby asteroid field. "Hold on," he warned. They plunged into the maze of floating rocks, using the massive asteroids as cover. The pirates followed, their weapons lighting up the darkness as they tried to flush out their prey. "We can't keep this up much longer," Joran said, sweat beading on his forehead. "The ship won't take much more damage." That's when something extraordinary happened. Nira closed her eyes and extended her hands, and suddenly the air around her began to shimmer. A soft silver light emanated from her skin, growing brighter by the second. "What are you doing?" Joran asked, amazed. "What I should have done long ago," she replied, her voice taking on an otherworldly quality. The light spread from her body to encompass the entire ship. When it reached the hull, something incredible occurred. The ship became translucent, almost invisible against the starfield. The pirates' targeting systems went haywire, unable to lock on to their suddenly ghostly vessel. "Impossible," came Corvin's voice over the comm. "Where did they go?" Joran stared at Nira in wonder. Her damaged wing was glowing, the torn membrane, somehow restored by the mysterious energy flowing through her. She was beautiful and terrible in her power, like a goddess of the stars. "I can't hold this for long," she said, straying evident in her voice. "You don't have to," Joran replied, his hands moving with new purpose over the controls. "I have an idea." Using the invisibility as cover, he maneuvered the ship behind the largest asteroid in the field. Then he powered down all non-essential systems, making them truly invisible to the pirates' sensors. They waited in tense silence as the pirate ships searched the asteroid field. After what felt like hours, they finally gave up and jumped to hyperspace, convinced their prey had escaped. Nira collapsed into Joran's arms, the effort of maintaining her power having drained her completely. The silver light faded, leaving her pale and exhausted. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, holding her close. "Because I was afraid," she admitted. "Afraid you would see me as something to be used, like everyone else did." Joran tilted her chin. Up so, she had to look at him. "I don't care what powers you have. I don't care if you're royalty or a commoner. I love you, Nira. Just you." Her eyes filled with tears. "I love you too." They kissed again, this time with an urgency born of having nearly lost each other. When they broke apart, Nira noticed something different in the way Joran looked at her. Not fear or greed, but a deeper respect and admiration. "We need to find somewhere safe," he said. "Those pirates won't give up easily." "I know a place," Nira said softly. "My homeworld. It's heavily defended, and my people will protect us." Joran nodded, though she could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Will they accept me?" "They'll have to," she said firmly, "because I'm not going anywhere without you." As they set course for Celesta Prime, Nira felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She was going home, but she was bringing with her something that could change everything: her love for a human who had saved her life and captured her heart. The crystalline spires of Celesta Prime rose from the clouds like fingers reaching for the stars. Nira pressed her face to the viewport, tears streaming down her cheeks as she saw her homeworld for the first time in over a year. The floating cities still drifted serenely through the upper atmosphere, their graceful architecture unchanged by time. "It's beautiful," Joran said, his hand finding hers. "It's home," she replied, though her voice carried uncertainty. "I just hope they'll welcome me back." The approach to the main city was tense. Celestian patrol ships had intercepted them at the edge of the system, their sleek fighters escorting Joran's battered cargo vessel toward the landing bays. Nira could see the pilots' faces through their canopies, their expressions ranging from shock to disbelief. As they touched down in the royal docking bay, Nira felt her heart hammering against her ribs. A crowd had gathered, and she could see familiar faces among them. Her stomach dropped when she spotted Elder Thane, the stern leader of the Celestian Council, his silver wings folded regally behind him. "Remember," she whispered to Joran. "No matter what happens, I chose this. I chose you." He squeezed her hand. "We'll face it together." They disembarked to find themselves surrounded by Celestian guards, their energy weapons trained on Joran. Elder Thane approached slowly, his ancient face a mask of controlled emotion. "Nira," he said, his voice carrying the weight of grief and anger, "we thought you were dead." "I nearly was," she replied, her chin raised defiantly. "But he saved me." She gestured to Joran, who stood calmly despite the weapons aimed at him. "A human?" Elder Thane's voice dripped with disdain. You disappeared from the marriage ceremony to your betrothed prince, and now you return with this. Alien? Nira felt the blood drain from her face. In all her conversations with Joran, she had never mentioned her royal heritage or her arranged marriage. She could see the shock and hurt in his eyes. "You're a princess?" he asked quietly. "I was going to tell you," she said desperately. "I was going to explain everything." "Explain what?" Elder Thane interrupted. "That you abandoned your duty to your people? That you've been consorting with a lower life form while we mourned your loss?" Joran stepped forward, his voice steady despite the insult. "With respect, Elder, I may be human, but I'm not a lower life form, and I love your princess more than life itself." "Love?" Elder Thane laughed bitterly. "You speak of love while she was promised to another? While her disappearance nearly started a war between our house and that of Prince Valen?" Nira felt the world spinning around her. "Valen? But I thought he would understand." "Understand what?" "That his bride ran away on their wedding day? That she chose exile over honor?" Elder Thane's wings spread wide in agitation. "He has demanded your return, and the council has agreed. You will marry him as planned." "No," Nira said firmly. "I won't." "You will," Elder Thane replied coldly, "because the alternative is war, and your human friend will be executed as a kidnapper and defiler of royalty." Joran's hand moved to his weapon, but Nira caught his arm. "Don't," she whispered. "It will only make things worse." "I won't let them force you into marriage," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "And I won't let them kill you," she replied. Elder Thane watched their exchange with growing disgust. "Guards, take the human to the detention center. The princess will be confined to her chambers until the wedding ceremony." As the guards moved forward, Nira made a decision that would change everything. She called upon her power, the same silver light that had saved them from the pirates. It flowed from her body in waves, causing the guards to stagger back in surprise. "I am Nira, daughter of the House of Stars, heir to the celestial throne," she declared, her voice resonating with power. "And I claim the right of heart bond." "Elder." Thane's face went pale. "You cannot be serious." "I am." Nira's light grew brighter. "I choose Joran as my heart-bonded mate. By ancient law, no one can force me to marry another." The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. The right of heart bond was an ancient tradition, rarely invoked, and never by someone of royal blood. But it was law, and even Elder Thane could not deny it. "The heart bond requires proof," he said through gritted teeth. "You must demonstrate that your souls are truly joined." Nira looked at Joran, seeing the love and determination in his eyes. "I accept the challenge." The ritual was performed in the great hall, with hundreds of Celestians watching. Nira and Joran stood in the center of a circle of ancient stones, their hands joined. The test was simple in concept, but dangerous in practice. They had to merge their life forces temporarily, proving that their souls were compatible. As the ceremony began, Nira felt Joran's presence joining with hers. Their thoughts, their emotions, their very essence became intertwined. She could feel his love for her, pure and unconditional, and she knew he could feel hers in return. The silver light that was her birthright flowed between them, and to everyone's amazement, Joran began to glow as well. His human energy, steady and strong, complemented her Celestian power perfectly. When the light faded, they were still standing, still joined, still whole. The crowd stood in stunned silence before slowly beginning to applaud. Elder Thane's expression was unreadable. "The bond is accepted," he announced reluctantly. "But know this, princess, you have chosen a difficult path. There will be those who will never accept a human as your mate." "Then they'll have to learn," Hera replied, her arm around Joran's waist, "because I'm not changing my mind." As they left the great hall together, Nira felt a sense of completion she had never experienced before. She had chosen love over duty, and somehow it had all worked out. The gardens of the royal palace were in full bloom, their bioluminescent flowers creating a natural light show as Nira and Joran walked hand in hand through the winding paths. 3 months had passed since the heart bond ceremony, and while there had been challenges, their love had only grown stronger. "I still can't believe your people accepted me," Joran said, pausing to admire a particularly beautiful cluster of singing flowers. "Not all of them have," Nira replied honestly, "but enough have. And the ones who matter most know that you're good for me." It was true. While Elder Thane remained skeptical, many of the younger Celestians had embraced Joran, his skills as a healer and his obvious devotion too. Their princess had won over even some of the more traditional members of the court. "I have something to tell you," Nira said, stopping beside a fountain that played music as the water danced. "The council has made a decision about our future." Joran's expression grew serious. "What kind of decision?" "They are going to name me as the next ruler of Celesta Prime," she said, watching his face carefully. "But there's a condition." "What condition?" "I have to choose between the throne and you," she said quietly. "They'll accept our bond, but they won't accept a human as their king." Joran was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. "What are you going to do?" "I already know what I'm going to do," she said, moving closer to him. "I'm going to choose you." "Nira, no," he said urgently. "You can't give up your birthright for me. Your people need you." "My people need a leader who follows her heart," she replied. "Someone who believes in love over politics. And besides," she smiled, "who says I have to stay here to make a difference?" Before he could ask what she meant, a commotion arose from the direction of the palace. They turned to see a group of Celestian guards approaching, their weapons drawn. Leading them was Prince Valen, the man she had been meant to marry. "So," Valen said, his voice cold with anger, "the runaway princess returns with her pet human." "Prince Valen," Nira said calmly, though she moved protectively in front of Joran. "I thought you had accepted the council's decision." "I accepted nothing," he snarled. "You humiliated me in front of both our houses. Now I'm here to reclaim what's mine." "I was never yours," Nira replied firmly. "You were promised to me from birth," Valen shot back. "That bond is more sacred than any human sentiment." Joran stepped forward, his hand moving to his weapon. "She's made her choice. Respect it." "I don't take orders from inferior beings," Valen said, signaling his guards. The confrontation that followed was brief but intense. Valen's guards advanced, but they hadn't counted on Joran's military training or Nira's powers. Working together, the couple fought with a synchronization that spoke of their deep connection. Nira's silver light flowed around them like protective armor, while Joran's tactical expertise kept them one step ahead of their attackers. In the end, it was Nira who ended it, her power overwhelming Valen's guards and leaving the prince stunned and defeated. "It's over, Valen," she said, her voice filled with power and authority. "Find another path for your life." As the guards retreated, Elder Thane appeared with a contingent of royal guards. "Prince Valen, you have violated the sacred rite of heart bond. You will be escorted from our world and not permitted to return." "This isn't over," Valen said as he was led away. "Mark my words, princess. Your human will be your downfall." After the guards had gone, Elder Thane turned to Nira and Joran. "The council has made its final decision," he said. "You may keep your bond, but you cannot remain here as rulers." "We know," Nira replied, "and we accept." "But," Elder Thane continued, "there is another option. The council has decided to establish a new kind of diplomatic mission. A ship that will travel between worlds, building bridges between species and preventing the kind of conflicts that have plagued our galaxy for so long. Joran's eyes lit up. A diplomatic vessel? More than that, Elder Thane said. A symbol of what's possible when different species work together. The Council wants you both to captain this mission. Nira and Joran exchanged glances, and she could see the excitement in his eyes. It's perfect, she said. We can explore the galaxy together, help others find the kind of love we've found. Then you accept? Elder Thane asked. We accept, they said in unison. 1 year later, Captain Nira and Captain Joran stood on the bridge of the Harmony, a beautiful vessel that combined the best of both Celestian and human technology. Their crew was diverse, representing dozens of species from across the galaxy, all united by a common goal of peace and understanding. New message coming in, reported their communications officer, a young Celestian named Kira. It's from the Nexus station. They're reporting a situation that requires our intervention. What kind of situation? Joran asked. Apparently, there's been a conflict between refugee families from different species. They need mediators. Nira smiled, taking her place beside Joran at the command console. Then let's go help them. Plot a course for the Nexus station. As the Harmony jumped to hyperspace, Nira felt a deep sense of contentment. She had found her purpose, her home, and her heart's desire all in one person. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and she was going to explore it all with the man she loved. No regrets? Joran asked quietly, taking her hand. None, she replied, squeezing his fingers. This is exactly where I belong. The stars streamed past the viewports as the Harmony raced toward its next mission, carrying with it a crew united by love and a dream of a better galaxy. And at its heart, two souls who had found each other in the darkness and chosen to build a future together among the stars. Their love had conquered all obstacles, and now it would help others do the same across the galaxy.